After my video last week on special mechanics, there was a lot of discussion on how callouts work exactly, and it turns out that as a community we had a lot of ideas about how they worked, and they were very much in conflict. So to figure out which is which and how it works, we decided to do a series of testing experiments. The chief questions were, how does detection work, and does line of sight matter? Does detection vary from special to special? And if a hero does a call out, what information do we get from that? In other words, what are the rules for determining which hero does the call out? If line of sight mattered, it means we should be able to detect an ogre at a further distance depending on where we're looking. We decided to test that. To gather data, we'd place Saltspire in the same spot every time and control where he was looking. I would spawn a special in the same spot every time, so it would take the same path. I would record the video and break it down frame by frame, recording at over 100 frames per second, and try to place a barrel where the spot happened so we could track it as we changed his angle. We then repeated the procedure for Saltspire looking directly away and found a significant difference between the two lengths. Now that we knew it wasn't merely proximity, we conducted a series of trials where we varied the angle between each trial to try to map the detection surface. I expected a continuous surface, something like an ellipsoid, such that the radius of detection would be rather close if you're looking away, but much further if you were looking towards it. It turns out that the division was much sharper.
Vermin spawned Ogre. Listen.
That Ogre coming at us.
So it seems like there are two distinct detection surfaces. The first is a sphere centered on your hero, which we'll call the hearing sphere, and anything within that radius you'll detect. The second is a seeing cone, located at plus or minus 45 degrees around where you're looking. Now that we had a working model for how detection works, we decided to test callouts. For callouts, we predicted that whichever hero would make the detection would also make the callout. So we manipulated how two heroes were positioned relative to specials and saw if that was the case.
Backstabber! Another big brute!
Keep back!
Over there! Bombardier! I want to melt those barrels to a puddle!
Sounds like a rattling gun.
We were pretty convinced of our model at this point, but we decided to try to replicate it with indoor settings where we wouldn't have line of sight. The results were rather surprising.
Sounds like a rattling gun.
Is that the vermin reloading?
For the Ogre, Gunner, and Assassin, the results were clear. Without line of sight, it was hearing radius. In other words, closest hero calls out.
Gas rat!
The gas rat, however, seemed to have a hearing cone and a hearing radius, perhaps because it is so loud.
Stay clear of it!
The Packmaster, however, only has a seeing cone. In other words, if it comes at you from an angle greater than 45 degrees from where you're looking, you will never get a call out. The last thing we had to test was how call out frequency is dictated and how callouts are shared among party members. We predicted going in that callouts had a cooldown that's shared among the party, and that if one person gets a callout, everyone gets a callout. The rules are pretty much consistent with that. My major evidence for saying that the cooldown is shared is everyone has suffered from double Packmaster with single callout.
Over there! A grabber!
Soon catch, soon catch. By the 8 wings, Strangler! Weird stone operators! I'm in the gunner's sight! Flank it! Ogre cursed assassins! Look out! Ogre! Poison rat! There! One of the stranglers! I'm gonna chaw that hook rat! Skaven gunner! Assassin! Here comes the rat ogre!
So there you have it. It turns out that the cooldown is 33 seconds per special per party, and it's shared no matter how far away you are. I summarized the rules below in a quick lookup table. There are 2 chief oddities left to be explained. The first being the double callout, which happens for assassins. I believe that's the case, but when one hero will do a sound detection and the other will do a line of sight detection. But we didn't do enough testing to confirm. It also turns out to be very hard to detect how vertical affects it, so we can't tell if it's a sphere of detection or a cylinder of detection. We're pretty sure it's a sphere, but the results weren't conclusive. I wanted to thank Deep Meaning and Magic Before Science for all their help testing and all their ideas going into this. This was a lot of fun to do, so if anyone has any other ideas for VerminScience, go ahead and let me know. As always, I appreciate all questions, comments, or suggestions. Leave them below. If you missed it, I did some longer videos where I explain AI, pathing, kiting, and special mechanics. And I also have a number of gameplay videos out there for Solo, Kata no Bot, as well as Death Wish. Thanks guys, see you.